And then I just want to read a quick statement here from Kelly Citron, who sent this letter from China, but she does live here in New York. My name is Kelly Citron, and I'm a PANDA state coordinator for the great state of New York. I am a native New Yorker, and with the help of PANDA National, have helped to build one of the largest anti-NDAA networks in the country in only a few short months. My team has logged thousands of miles this last summer, meeting with thousands of people, giving countless presentations, and spreading our message to anyone who would listen. I coordinated the efforts of individuals and organizations throughout the state, and the numbers of those we can now educate and mobilize has climbed into the thousands, making New York among the fastest growing states in the PANDA network. I have dedicated incalculable amounts of time to working against the NDAA and invested hundreds if not thousands of dollars, but it has been the richest experience of my life. This is because wherever I go in this state, be it Albany or Allegheny, I find people so perturbed, so shocked, so outraged at the concept of perpetual American battlefield that they are willing to take losses in wage, in time, and expend huge efforts to assist our team. I've seen this issue unite people across age, gender, political affiliation, and socioeconomic background like nothing else. Groups who have seemingly opposed only each other have come together to learn about and get involved against the NDAA. And there's a reason for that, because the authority that the 2012 NDAA grants the federal government is so historic, so invasive, and so dangerous that every group can find a demographic or interest of theirs that the NDAA violates. To be concise, people from every walk of life are outraged because the rights that the NDAA ignores are ones which united us in the first place. There are many still alive who can remember an America which ignored the basic human rights of his people. There are always eras which seem nobler through the kind lens of history, when the motives are polished, the speeches rewritten, and the men and women turned into bronze. It's rare because of our fondness for heroics to find a movement, political or otherwise, just as justified as we like to imagine. But the civil rights movement of the 1960s is one awe-inspiring exception. For most of our history, the United States has practiced a malevolent apathy, pushing the horrors of racial violence to the fringes of political discussion and far away from the popular imagination. Afraid of judgment and justice, the United States government kept entire races from the halls of power, muffled by violence, poverty, and policy. The arbitrary discrimination continued until a group of incredible men and women showed a nation its shame, the dark, dirty places that existed beyond its glittering facade. They had the courage to march and chant, to stand and speak, and when their oppressors worked by night, afraid to step into the light. But the heroes and heroines of that era don't need me to announce them. I mention them today only because our cause is a sister to their own, and our opposition to the NDAA is just another chapter in the struggle for civil rights. Now, as then, our federal government wishes to work uninterrupted, unchecked, and unbalanced. Often I think when someone who argues for unilateral government ability to detain, deport, and execute justifies these actions as being for public good, I imagine a debate on literacy tests taking place in Jim Crow South. It seems odd, but while I imagine that many supporters of literacy tests simply wanted to increase the competence of the voter base simply for the public good, they did not understand how malicious forces could use this as a tool to disenfranchise a race of people. In the same way, many supporters of the NDAA genuinely hope to save lives, but do not realize how far some people will go in pursuit of control and to silence critics. But we only have to look 60 years into the past to understand that men will abuse control once they have it, and once they have it, it takes earth-shattering means to pry it away. I am proud to live in a nation who has paid for its freedom so dearly, rights for which so many have struggled to regain for themselves. I urge you to use this resolution in its current form to send a message, a historic one that will be that the thousands who marched for civil rights and the millions who died never knowing them will be proud of the nation we have become. Honor their memory and pass Council Konev's resolution and continue to stand for a freer, more just America. And that's from Kelly Citron. Thank you.
My name is Lynn Jackson. I live at 223 South Swan Street in Albany, and I represent Project Salam, support and legal advocacy for Muslims. And I've come tonight to ask the Council to please support Mr. Konev's resolution in opposition of the National Defense Authorization Act. This Council has a history of doing the right thing when it comes to the government, the federal government, imposing restrictions on civil liberties. The first thing that this Council did is that they opposed the Patriot Act, that wonderful provision that the resolution that was passed a number of years ago in opposition to the Patriot Act. And also in 2010, this Council supported Mr. Casallero's resolution, which we call the Albany Resolution, which asked for investigation into the FBI entrapment of Muslims. This anti-NDAA resolution is another of this series of resolutions that I hope the Council will pass regarding the issue of civil liberties. The NDAA has some pretty terrifying provisions in it. The one that concerns me the most is the possibility of indefinite detention. Indefinite detention is a completely un-American idea. Indefinite detention should not be allowed. We currently have a situation of indefinite detention happening in Guantanamo Bay, where people have been kept without trial or charge for in excess of 12 years. So that's why these resolutions are so important, because if we don't stand up to the federal government to tell them, you cannot take away our civil rights, that we will find that our rights are increasingly eroded. I am particularly concerned about the issue raised in the lawsuit, in the Supreme Court ruling over Humanitarian Law Project versus Eric Holder, where the Supreme Court ruled that the Humanitarian Law Project, which was an organization that would go to groups that used violence to try to get their means, to instead try to persuade these organizations, considered terrorist organizations, to instead use some kind of peaceful way to resolve their differences. And the Supreme Court ruled this peaceful resolution of issues to be material support for terrorism. And I think that's a particularly chilling decision by the Supreme Court. And that is why we need to oppose these kinds of federal laws that restrict our freedoms so much. So I do hope that everyone here will support Mr. Konev's resolution. Thank you very much.